Hi everyone, and welcome to Canadian Redneck Channel. My name's Dave, and today, as you can see, we've got something a little bit different here. It's not going to be terribly useful in a hayfield, but it'll certainly get you between fields pretty quick. This is a 1994 Corvette. Just picked it up, bought it as a non-runner, so I got it at a real steal. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to afford to buy it. But anyway, I bought it. The previous owner, who I had never asked if I could use his name on the internet, so from here on out we'll call him P.O. He thought that it had a bad timing chain, which is a possibility with these engines. These are an LT1 engine. That can be an issue with them. So anyway, made the deal, got the car home, and I started checking things out. I popped the hood, pulled the oil cap, and you could see a valve in there. So I had a long magnet that I stuck to the valve and put a ratchet on the nut on the alternator pulley and just started turning the engine over carefully, feeling for any resistance to make sure I wasn't tagging any valves or anything like that, and turned the engine over a bit, and valve went down and came back up. So I knew the timing chain was okay. It wasn't broken, at least. So between when I saw the ad and when I got the car home was, I don't know, a week and a half. So I watched a whole bunch of YouTube videos and discovered that another problem with these engines is the Optispark distributor. They're susceptible to water damage, so the engineers in their ultimate wisdom decided the best place for it was underneath and behind the water pump, where, you know, if the water pump goes, it leaks on the Optispark. Brilliant idea. Way to go, engineers. So anyway, I stripped the parts off, pulled the Optispark off, and it was really dirty, rusty, deteriorated for sure. And inside is a round stainless steel disc with little slots in it all the way around that goes through a little plastic piece, and in that plastic piece is a laser that shoots a laser beam through those notches and reads the notches. So I cleaned up the disc, blew out through the laser piece with compressed air. Didn't have a lot of hope when I put it back on, but I figured I'd give it a try. Like I said, I cleaned up inside the distributor cap and cleaned the rotor and so on too. Put that back on, and before I put the water pump or anything else on, I hit the key and it fired right up. So perfect. I knew that was a problem. So got parts ordered. They arrived on Friday. It was a long weekend this weekend. This is Tuesday now. So I've got all the parts here assembled, ready to put on, and that's what we're going to do today. So I will start getting things, we'll get at it, and I'll get you a camera angle so you can see what I'm doing, and we'll get started. First thing, we're going to pop the hood. And we will unhook the battery cable. It's right here. They're electric fans, which can turn on at any time. And we're going to be working down in there by the fans, so I don't want to lose any fingers, because that's how I make my living right off the bat. So, and it probably hurt. Anyway, we will get the battery cable unhooked, get some coolant draining from the radiator, and start stripping things apart. We're going to have to take our air intake boot off here. Has the mass airflow sensor in it, and another one up there too. I'm not sure what it is, possibly air temperature or something along those lines. So we will unfasten those. I already had these clamps loosened because I pulled the thermostat out of it this morning and flushed the cooling system all out because it was looking pretty murky. The coolant drain is on the right hand side of the radiator, down at the bottom, and I can reach it quite easily through this right front fender well. There it is. So we'll just open that drain on the radiator and dump the coolant, which at this point is just water, because like I said, I flushed it all out until it was coming reasonably clean. Yeah, it's just gurgling air up through the radiator, so we will open our red cap here. There we go. I don't know if you can hear it on camera, but it's running pretty good now. And the overflow tank, I suspect I'm going to have to siphon out because it's also just pure water. So we'll let that drain for a minute. We can start taking radiator hoses off here. There's 2 radiator hoses here. A hose that goes through the throttle body here, and another hose for the heater. So we will get those peeled off out of the road, and actually this one here has the thermostat housing on. We'll just unbolt the thermostat housing and bring that hose and everything over here out of the road, and it is the same 8mm as the battery. Now the water pump has a temperature sensor in it and a small wiring harness that we can just, there we go, close up the little tabs on the wire holders and pop them out of the holders. There's little holes in the water pump for these wire harness pieces to go onto, so we can unfasten that and fold that out of the way here. Now, we also have to remove the serpentine belt because we have to remove the crank pulley, and also because the tensioner is in the way for getting at least one of the bolts out of the water pump. And the bolt on the tensioner that I'm onto is like a 5/8 or a 16mm. I'm sure it's 16mm, but the 5/8 works. There we are. There. There's 3 bolts on the water pump on each side. Basically there's 1 on each side that's reasonably visible. The rest you got to search for. Now, something I discovered when I was doing this before is this dryer canister for your AC just slips down in this holder where it's at, and there is enough slack on the hoses that you can lift that out and slide that out of the way, and that gives you more room for removing the water pump. Some people were taking the throttle body off the intake for doing this, and I think because they didn't just move this canister and give themselves a little more room for removing the water pump. There we go, and yeah, okay. There we are. There. And we will fish that out of here. There. Now, on the back side of the water pump, right here, there's a little sleeve. And that is what drives the water pump from a gear that runs off the cam. So you want to make sure that you don't drop that and lose it, because that's an important piece. But here's our old water pump, and like I said, I don't think it's a good idea, if you're going to the trouble to replace the Optispark, to put a used water pump back on. I think it's cheap insurance to replace that water pump while you're doing. And in fact, I'm going to also change the thermostat and rag cap while I'm at it, because the rag cap was acting a little sketchy one day. Didn't seem like it was allowing the overflow tank to suction back up in to fill the main reservoir up here. So we'll be changing that out also. Next thing is we have to remove our front crank pulley. Now, the front crank pulley is also 5/8 or 16mm, and there are 3 bolts, and then the actual hub on the crank can stay on the crankshaft. You just need to remove the harmonic balancer. When I had that off previously, I cleaned up the hub and the inside of the pulley and used some never seize, anti-seize, so that it will hopefully come off fairly easily again this time. Yeah, it looks like I can wiggle it off by hand. Yeah, there we go. And that will slip right up out. And now I will move the camera so you all can see. We can get to the Optispark. And we can see this is the Optispark distributor. It drives off of the camshaft. You can see here the hub on the front crankshaft, on the front of the crankshaft where the front pulley was. And you can see that the pulley would have been covering quite a portion of that. And so there's not room to get it off without removing that crankshaft pulley. And the water pump bolts in here and here. We'll have to clean those gasket surfaces off before we put that back on. And this is the coil wire. We'll tuck that back carefully. There's four plug wires here and 4 plug wires here. And I'm just gonna mark them from top to bottom, 1 to 4, so we know where they go back on when we put the new distributor on. There's 3 bolts hold the distributor on. There's one here, one on that side over there, and then one down here, sort of behind the front pulley. And as I recall, let's see, I think they're 10 millimeter. Let's check this 8. I don't think they're 8. I think they're 10. Yeah, they're 10 millimeter. And there we have the Optispark distributor. Now on the back, there is a master spline on this shaft. And so to make it easy to identify where it was at, I'm going to put a mark on here so that I can line up the new distributor to go back in. If you don't have it in the correct spot, you're going to have a real time getting it to line up and fit in where it belongs. Before we start reassembling, I'm going to clean my gasket surfaces here. And it's been cooling well, but I am going to take the air gun and blow out through the radiator a bit too, just to be on the safe side, make sure that everything is optimal as it can be. Okay, before we start reassembling, I'll give you a little better view of what's going on. So we got our crank hub down there, then right above it, right here, that's where the distributor fastens on, and the shaft from the distributor goes in and runs right off the front of the cam. This is the little shaft that drives the water pump. It's just an idler gear in there that runs off the top of the cam gear. And that drives your water pump. It doesn't have to be timed. I have the new distributor set, ready, I think, to slide into place. So we'll get started reassembling things. So the first thing we're going to do is slide this down close to in place and fasten our plug wires on, and then slip it up into the mesh it with the cam gear. I'll just put the plug wires on first so it gives me a little bit of room to wiggle around and work with, because they're in a pretty tight spot, especially on that left hand side. Wires are all on. Let's get this slipped in there. Come on, baby. Oh, there you go. Look at that. Yeah. Right in this place. Beautiful. Now, we want to remember that these are just 10mm bolts. So you don't go overboard and tighten them up, just snug them up nice. Don't want them vibrating loose, but you don't want to snap them off in there either. That's just going to ruin your day. Before I put the bottom pulley back in, I am going to fish this belt down in there because it's a lot easier to do now than after the pulley is down in place. The bolts for the front pulley are unevenly spaced, so it only goes on one way. I had put a mark on it beforehand so I know where it's going, and we shall put the pulley on now. There. Beautiful. Okay, apparently I missed turning the camera back on. I decided that before I get water pump and everything on, I moved the belt out of the way and plugged in the air intake sensors and so on, and I'm going to give that a quick try, make sure it fires before I get everything else on and find out that something's wrong. There's always the possibility that a new part can be faulty or something else could be messed up. We will gotta hook this battery back up. We shall unplug this battery again, and that was indeed beautiful music. Now I'll put the other two bolts in our pulley and we'll tighten those up. I have the park brake on. I'm going to put it in 6th gear so that the engine won't turn. I can get those nice and snug. Okay, battery died on my camera. I don't think we missed much, but I have the front pulley tightened up now. I moved the dryer for the AC out of the way so I can fish the water pump into place. So we'll get her in there and see what we can do. Like I said, we've got the little drive hub for the water pump, and we'll slip that on in place. So we're putting in a new temperature sensor also into the water pump, because the old one, I ended up breaking all the plastic shielding away from where the plug plugs into it. Smacking it off stuff here when I'd taken it on and off, I guess. So I figured it'd be a wise plan to put on a new temperature sensor. Before I put the thermostat in and this top on, we will top up with fluids right through the water pump here. And first thing, I'm going to put some straight antifreeze in there, probably about half a jug, because I expect that the engine didn't drain completely, and it was basically it was all water in there, no antifreeze. Yeah, we'll put in some straight antifreeze, let it circulate for a few days, and then I'll check it with my antifreeze tester and see if we need some more antifreeze or possibly a little water to even it out. All right, let's see what we got here. The thermostat housing has a bleed screw in it to let air out when you're filling up, and we'll fill it on up now before we start it. But then once we have a full stream of fluid coming out here, no air bubbles, we'll close that, start it up, and open that bleed screw again once it's running to make sure we're getting a full stream there before we close that and finish filling it. And then of course after we run it, we'll have to check it again, make sure that it's full as it's supposed to be. So now we fill our primary tank, and it will get us a full clear stream of fluid coming out our bleed screw here. And when that happens, we close off, start the engine up, and make sure we finish filling. Oh, right. And we gotta close our radiator drain. There we go. Because up to this point we've just been filling the block, not the radiator. Now it's finally filling the radiator. Okay, doesn't look like we're going to get fluid out of this bleeder until we start it up, so that's what we're going to have to do. Our bleed screw is right here. It is closed just at the moment. I'm going to start it up, open the bleed screw until we get a good solid stream coming from it. Then we close that, make sure it's full, put some in our overflow tank, and we should be golden. That concludes our Corvette video, changing the Optispark and water pump, etc. If you enjoyed the video, please give us a like. Any questions or comments, you can leave that in the comment section below. Please give us a like,